Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I am your host, David Haas. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. I think this podcast is going to be really beneficial, really practical. I love pragmatic things that you can kind of sink your teeth into, feel, touch, smell. And this is what a lot with spirituality and spiritual growth, it gets kind of unpragmatic, if that's even a word, where you can't really taste it or touch it, but you can feel it. But it's happening non-linearly, and you don't really know when it's happening. A lot of the leaps that happened for me in spiritual growth, it was happening without me even realizing it. There were moments where I did have this aha moment, and then I could see everything that was happening on this non-linear kind of graph, and I saw, every single thing that happened led me to this one point. But today's podcast is about being really pragmatic and actually achieving a goal that you can kind of see, taste, touch, feel, that kind of thing. So the first thing I want to talk to you about goal achievement, I guess that's going to be the title of this podcast, is how to achieve goals, is about the power of planning. Okay, so I've understood this for a long time, that planning was critical. Things that get planned are things that get done. But there's reasons we don't plan. And this kind of comes back to, my coaching system, which is the Haas method that I've labeled it now, which is realize, release, and realign. So the first step is the realize why we're not planning. What is it inside of us that's holding us back from actually setting a plan? And I think the realize with regards to planning is that we make our goals too big. This is, I think, one of the big mistakes that I was doing for the longest time. I think most people are doing. If you want to become a multi-millionaire, if you want to get into amazing shape and be in bodybuilding competitions, if you want to become a pro golfer, these are very, very big goals. And what happens is that the goal is so big, you end up just not doing anything because you get overwhelmed by everything that you need to do to get to that goal. It's just you can't see the finish line. And when you can't see the finish line, it's very hard to build up the energy that you need to actually get into action. So this is where planning comes in. And what you want to do with planning is you want to take that big goal and you want to break it down into tiny little daily goals. So what I do is I have this 5-circle method, and basically I write out what I want my life to look like. And I think a lot of people aren't doing that. It's what do you want your life to look like? Do you want to live in a mansion, or do you want to live in a 3-bedroom house? Do you want to drive a Lamborghini, or are you cool with driving, a Jeep Grand Cherokee like me? Whatever it may be. It's just really kind of take a look into what you want your life to look like. How often do you want to travel? How many kids do you want to have? And once you have a vision of that, then build whatever it is you want to build around that idea. Whatever career it is, whatever business you want, just build it around that. It's okay, if I want to be a multi-millionaire, there's things that I'm going to have to do that I probably wouldn't have to do if I'm just cool with living in a 3-bedroom house and, having 2 cars and a wife and 2 kids. It's they're just different. So no big deal. And I'm not judging either or. It's just you have to adjust your goals and your daily goals and what your daily routine looks like in order to fit that model. So the first circle is my life, what I want my life to look like. Okay. So just after this podcast, you can just do these 5 circles. It's kind of a fun practice. The next circle is my year. What do you need to do this year in order to move you towards this bigger goal of becoming a multimillionaire, let's say? So just write out the things that you need to do, the big things that you need to do this year, the big steps that you think you need to take this year in order to get to that goal that might be 5 or 10 years down the road. The next step is write out what you need to do this month. It's pretty simple. Just break down the yearly goals into monthly goals. Then you go to your week. What am I doing this week to achieve the goals that I need to achieve this month? And then finally, what am I doing today to achieve the goals of my week? It's literally that simple. And I have this saying that success is simple. And the reason people don't become successful, and when I say success, it's in any area of your life. It's not just related to money. I think a real good practice is, as an aside here, is that you should really define what success looks like to you. It's is it money? Is it happiness? Is it travel? Is it family? You have to define what success looks like to you, because if you don't have a definition, same thing, you can't see the finish line. It's going to be very hard to get to the finish line if you don't know where it is. So define what success looks like to you. So This is why success is simple. Once you have a definition of what success looks like, it's a matter of doing small, simple daily tasks consistently, and you're going to be successful. So what I do in my planning process is insanely simple. At the beginning of every week, and now I'm just talking about my week, every Sunday night, I review my 3 circles. What I want out of my life, what I want out of my year, what do I want out of this month, and what I do from there is I plan my week. Okay. I also reflect back on my previous week to see how my progress is going on reaching my monthly goals. But the life goals, the year goals can pretty much be forgotten about as long as you're focusing on the month. So now during this weekly process, so now I'm sitting down, I reflect on how I did last week. Did I achieve what I wanted to achieve throughout the course of that week that was moving me towards my monthly goals? And then I plan out my upcoming week, and I do this on Sunday night. I do it religiously, and I've really just probably in the last 6 months I've really come into this, and the changes have been miraculous for me. It's like I went from producing, let's say, one piece of content every other day to producing 15 to 30 pieces of content a day, 2 pieces of long content. It's like it's just been exponential, the power that's happened because of this planning. So I'm also moving really quickly and rapidly towards some really major goals of mine, which is about releasing bigger programs to impact more people, more live events once we're allowed to have live events that happen again. I'm really refining my coaching process. I've given it the name now, the Haas method. This has all happened because of this planning process. Okay, so this is how much power there is in it, and it's just so simple. So I look at my week, and then what I do is I write out every day, and I put the things that are fixed. There's things in my set schedule that are fixed. Right now, during COVID, it's like from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. is kind of like my free time where I'm journaling, reflecting, meditating, exercising. Then from 6 till about 9, I'm with my daughter because we don't have our nanny right now, and that is like my time. Whenever she wakes up, I'm basically spending time with her. Which is actually kind of funny. What we're doing right now is I play with her on the ground while I'm listening to a YouTube podcast, basically like Impact Theory, Gary Vee, Tony Robbins, whoever it may be. I throw that on in the background, so I'm trying to get a little bit of learning in while I'm playing with her. But basically from the hours of 6 to 9 is like my time with my family, which is my daughter. My wife sleeps in because she has her at night, okay? At 9 o'clock, I go to work. And I basically work from 9 till 6. And during that 9 till 6 time, I have things that I have to do. I have clients that I got to get on calls with or meet with in person. I have things that I need to do at my restaurant because we're renovating right now. And I'm coordinating that renovation. I'm doing some of the renovations myself. So those things are put into my fixed calendar. And then all the other time is open. So, I might have an open window of 3 hours. Then what I do is I make a list of everything that I want to get done in this week, every single task that I want to get done that pertains to what I want to get done in the month, that's moving me towards what I want to get done in the month, and I insert those things into my open slots. I think the key word of this is that it's open, meaning if something shifts in my day, I can morph my schedule. I'm not committing every single minute. I just know that I need to get done these tasks, and I put them tentatively into these open slots. Sometimes they can shift, sometimes they stay the same. If I'm trying to, let's say, write, if I was in the process of writing a book, if I had to write a book, I would know that I need at least an hour and a half to spend writing that book. So I'm going to make sure I insert that into an hour and a half time slot minimal. Okay, so there are some of my open hours that get turned into fixed. I'm really getting off the handle on this, but I think you guys are following me. I hope you guys are following me. So I'm just inserting the list of the 30 or 40 things I need to do into my calendar, and it's flexible somewhat. What happens here when you start to do this and you have a goal, let's say a monthly goal. Right now, my monthly goal is I have this one-on-one coaching call that I'm releasing where basically people can get on the phone with me, and I believe because of the power of coaching, that I can resolve people's major issues in just one coaching call. And I'm about to release that, and I'll release it right here in this podcast. Very soon, you're going to be able to go to my website, and you're going to be able to book one coaching call with me for $297. And the reason that it's priced like that is because I'm going to get to the critical factors that are going to allow you to make the major change that you have. I've had clients, multiple clients, where I've been able to point out one single thing to them and they've been able to completely transform their life. I point out to one client that the reason that they're using drugs and alcohol is because they're seeking acceptance from other people. That realization alone what began to began to make the changes that were necessary for them to be completely sober for the last year. I can point out one thing that a business is doing wrong that turns into thousands of dollars of sales for them. So this is the power, I believe, when you have someone that's from the outside looking in. When you're in the jar, it's hard to read the label. Okay, so that's the power of coaching. This is the process. This is what I'm releasing. So I can't just say I'm going to release that and then start working aimlessly towards releasing that. I need to have a schedule. So every day in my schedule, today, for example, I'm recording the Facebook ads that are going to be releasing that. Before this, I was building the website. I was recording the main video for that website. I was figuring out how people are going to schedule in my Calendly app, so they can actually, after they sign up for the coaching call, they get sent an email, they can go to my calendar and they can book their call right there. Like, all of this had to be uncovered and revealed to me through this power of planning. So now I'm really close to releasing this one-on-one coaching call product, if you want to call that. And I was able to do that because I broke down to this big goal. And my big goal, my life goal, is about impacting millions of people, speaking to millions of people. But this is one of the tools I have decided is what's going to get me closer to that goal. So if you learn to implement this, the next thing that's going to happen is it's going to start to build confidence. As you achieve your weekly goals, your daily goals, your monthly goals, your yearly goals, you just become more confident. And this is about the power of an intention. If you wake up every day with no intention and you're just kind of going through the day and you don't know really what you want to do, you're just kind of going through the motions, that's what your life is going to look like. It's going to be, the way you live your days is the way you live your life. So if you go through your day with no intention, you're going to go through your life with no intention. So just by setting an intention every day, it's moving you towards what you want to achieve. And then when you achieve it and you see the power that exists in intention, you're going to begin to build confidence. It's kind of like you're proving to yourself that you can set your mind to something and you can do it. Tony Robbins, I remember listening to Tony Robbins once, and he has this cold plunge that he has at his house, which is like 50-degree water. It's literally like a manhole-sized little pool. And then he jumps into it every morning. And every morning his mind tells him that he doesn't want to do it. But then he does it because he wants to show to his mind that he has the power to control his mind. So he jumps into this cold water. And this is the same thing on the opposite spectrum. As you start to do these things and accomplish them, you're going to start to feel more confident. The best example I can give to you of this is of the Treehouse, my bar restaurant that I have. And forever, when I bought Treehouse, it was a full restaurant. More of a restaurant than it was a bar. We're open from 11 a.m. till 2 a.m. every day, and we're serving food every day, all day. And we had it was a complete full menu, like steak sandwiches, hamburgers, it was a restaurant. And my skill set wasn't in the restaurant business. I was more on the bar side of things. And slowly, I just allowed the food to slip away, and Treehouse became more of a bar. Then now it's come full circle, and about 3 years ago, I made the decision that I was going to turn Treehouse back into a restaurant. It's like I could see where the market was going. I could see that the nightclub industry was kind of fading and that we needed something more. And I made the decision. I set a clear intention that we were going to launch this menu. And I got together with my now general manager, who became the kitchen manager first, and we said, let's create this entire menu. Let's figure out how to get a POS system, how to train the staff, how to test the food. And we did that in, I'm going to say it's a 6-week process, but really it was 3 weeks. Once we had figured out the recipes and everything, it was 3 weeks from start to finish. And that included renovating the bar, making it a little bit cleaner because people need a clean atmosphere for food. Renovating, printing the menus, implementing a POS system, training the staff, testing all the food, training the cooks. It was this huge process, but because of the power of this intention, we were able to get it done. And we had a plan. We knew that on this day, by this day, because we had a day that we were going to launch the menu. So we went and we got this thing completed. And literally the night we launched the menu, Treehouse transformed from a bar to a bar restaurant. And it happened right before our eyes. We had people being seated at tables. Food was getting pumped out of the kitchen. It completely transformed what Treehouse was. And not only that, it doubled my sales. And now looking at where we're at today in this whole coronavirus pandemic, it's like the future of nightclub is not looking very bright right now. Like it might be a year and a half before people are gathering together in nightclubs. So thankfully, because I was able to set that pure intention, because I used the power of planning, I now know that Treehouse will be able to survive because we're just going to be more of like a pub than a nightclub. We're going to be pumping out food. We're probably going to go into delivery. Like I really see all of that happening because we were able to execute, and we were able to execute because of that plan. But what this did for me though was it built my confidence. It was like, if I could create I created a whole entire new business, even though it was inside of a business. I created a whole entire new business in 3 weeks, start to finish. I'm like, wow, if that's what can be done in 3 weeks, what else can I get accomplished? What can I get accomplished in a year? What can I get accomplished in a decade? Right? So that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like my decade plan is to be speaking in front of millions of people. So what do I need to do this year to start making that happen? And I'm doing that. So that's the power of planning. The second thing though is this is probably the third thing, I guess now. The first one is planning. The second thing is that you build your confidence as you do it. The third though is that as you're moving forward, and I have a whole entire podcast about this, that the how gets answered through taking action. But as you begin moving forward, you're going to start to feel that resistance. And I was just sitting in a coaching session and we were talking about that negative inner voice, right? And for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's self-doubt, that little voice that will start reassuring you that you are not good enough. Or, one that happens for me is when I see other people doing what it is that I want to do, I start thinking, no, he's already doing what I want to do. Or for me, another big trigger is when I see someone younger than me that's more successful than me in the same field. It's a trigger for me, okay? But I've realized, like through rational thought, I know I can talk myself out of that. But if I'm not paying attention to that inner voice will begin to take over and it will force me into inaction, okay? Now, by having a plan, it kind of, in some ways, starts to quiet that inner voice, because that inner voice can be screaming. But if I'm looking at my calendar, I'm like, I know I got to record these videos today. There's not even an option, right? It's like, it's kind of like a tool against procrastination. It's like, I know that I have Julie and Chantel coming here today to record videos. I'm like, I can't allow that inner voice to interject here, because what am I going to do? Call them and say, don't come today? No. It's like, I got to get it done. So the plan helps silence the inner voice. But I think a really cool tool, and I just started experimenting with it, and it's been actually really powerful, is giving your inner voice or that inner personality like a name. And I've affectionately named it the monkey. Okay. So, and it's like not something I really want to I don't want to insult the monkey. I just want to be aware that the monkey's there and almost look at it like affectionately, like, oh, like stupid monkey, like he doesn't know any better, right? Like that's the kind of way I want to look at this monkey, because the monkey is a part of me, and I don't want to start saying I hate you or you're an asshole or whatever it is. I want to look at it affectionately, but just looking at it the way it's like, if you're a parent and a kid comes to you with like this wild idea about like building a tree fort on top of the house, and you can see their passion, but you're just like, it's not going to happen. So you just have to say, yeah, okay, that's good. And that's kind of the way I look at my monkey. It's just like, yeah, I hear you, monkey, but we're not going to do that. Okay. And this is what you can do with your monkey with that negative inner voice. So for me, it happened to me this morning. Literally, I was watching Impact Theory this morning, and there's this guy, Brendan Burchard, and this guy is like literally killing the coaching game. Like he's had 100 million people take his online course, right? Not only the impact that he's having on people, but also like the amount of money that he's bringing in from this. It's like this guy is a machine, And I was like, wow. And I think he's younger than I am. And I'm like, this guy is way ahead of. And all of a sudden, that little monkey starts freaking dancing around and talking to me. And I just had to become aware, right? And because I was able to kind of give that inner voice now this name, this identity, it was just a lot easier for me to kind of just be like, hey, monkey, like get out of here. Like, I don't need you on this. I know where I'm going. I got my goals. I got my plan. I got my decade plan. I got my life plan. There's no room for you here. And immediately the voice was silenced. Without that awareness, that voice would keep squeaking in on every single thing that you did throughout the day. And eventually that monkey is going to suck up all of your energy because it's consuming all of your thought. All right. So I think this is a really amazing tool and tactic, is to start becoming aware of that inner voice. Give it a persona. It doesn't have to be the monkey. I just think the monkey's funny. So give it a persona. Not a persona that you're going to hate on, but just a persona that you're affectionately going to disregard every time he or she comes into the picture. And then this will start creating the awareness around the resistance. When you start paying attention to what that monkey's saying to you and you start bringing awareness to it, so what you could do is start writing out everything the monkey's saying to you. So this is gonna 10x your ability to overcome this voice, because not only now are you paying attention to it, you're writing it out, you're bringing more awareness, and then it goes into the Haas method, which is, now that you're aware, which is realize, the next step is to be free of those emotions, right? So that voice of self-doubt, that voice of apathy, that voice of worthlessness, it began somewhere in your life, okay? So we need to bring awareness to where that began in our life so we can begin feeling those emotions, feeling and be free of them. Let me give you a perfect example of this, is that people-pleasing is a mechanism that you created to not feel a certain way, okay? So you people please because you don't want to, for me, let me use my own example. I think this is what helps when this is how Jesus taught in parables. So it's like, I think it's easier for you to understand. I was a people pleaser because I was avoiding conflict. I had a fear of conflict, probably because my dad was the type of person you had to walk on eggshells around, right? Also because I had conflict when I went to high school. I was all these guys were trying to fight me all the time. So I created this people-pleasing behavior, basically, so I'm never going to say anything that's going to create conflict because I have fear of conflict. So in order to be free of that people-pleasing behavior, I had to be free of the fear of conflict. Once I got rid of the fear of conflict, there was no need for me to have this mechanism of people-pleasing anymore because I was no longer avoiding that fear. How did I become free of the fear? Well, I just tuned into it, right? I just tuned into it, allowed myself to feel that fear fully, ask myself where it began. And some of the instances that came up for me was where it began in my childhood with my dad, right? My dad, like, if you did one wrong thing, he would explode on you, right? So that's where this people-pleasing behavior, you can just see it. It's like, obviously I was going to be the good kid and make sure I didn't do anything wrong to avoid my dad blowing up on me, right? That was the mechanism that I created to avoid feeling that conflict with my father. So I just had to go back there, be that little kid again. And I think I've said this in another podcast, but I remember this one time that I cut the off button off on the remote, and my dad like went ballistic on me, like slapped me in the face, kicked me, like not like overly abusive, but like he like beat me up a little bit. And like the fear that I felt in that moment was so intense. And so what I had to do is I had to bring myself back to that moment, allow myself to truly, fully feel the fear, right? And in that moment, when I connected to it, I was scared I was going to die. Now, granted, I was like a 9-year-old kid, so it's like, obviously my dad's not going to kill me, but I really, truly felt like I was going to die. And so I just had to sit and feel it. I didn't rationalize it. I didn't bring the rationalization in that I just brought in from my adult self, which was I wasn't going to die. That's the rationalization. I didn't allow that. I said, how do you feel as a 9-year-old kid when your dad's smacking you in the face and kicking you and yelling at you and whatever else? I don't even remember what he was saying to me exactly, but it was not nice. And so how did I truly feel? I was scared to death. I thought I was going to die. Okay, how does that feel? How does it feel in the body? And it's like immediately I actually began feeling the shakiness, the adrenaline pumping. I was feeling it, and I just allowed myself to stay there in that fear. And the longer I stayed in there, the less the fear had the power over me. And by the end of the meditation, I was through the fear and I was into the state of like shame, that I felt bad about what I did. It wasn't that I was just scared. It was I felt bad and that had made my father upset, right? So usually under anger, desire, fear, there's something more that's tied to it. So once you get through the fear, you can then ask, is there anything else here? And then right away I was like, I felt so terrible. My dad, was always this person that money was an issue for him. So I had roped the remote. He was gonna have to go buy a new remote, so there was a shame I felt. And that ties back, now I'm just saying it out loud, that ties back into the shame that I created around like the way we lived and about the cars we drove, the house we live in, and that was all tied to my desire for money. So it's like it was all interconnected. And once I learned how to be free of that shame, and be free of that fear, I no longer needed the mechanism to people please because I was no longer fearful of conflict. Okay, I no longer needed the desire for money because I was free of the shame I felt as a kid from living in a shitty house and driving shitty cars. These lower states of consciousness create mechanisms that try and keep us safe. This is what the ego does. Everything it does is tries to keep us safe. So in order to be free of that mechanism, we need to identify what it is that we're trying to avoid feeling. And this is the monkey. This is the monkey's bringing that awareness to us. Coming in and saying, oh, you're not good enough to write a book. You're not good enough to be a coach and speak to millions of people. It's like, you're never going to get to that level. Okay, where did that voice start? Bring the awareness to it. Move to the second step, release, be free of it, let it go, journal, feel it, whatever you got to do. Contact me as a coach, I'll walk you through it. And then finally, it's realign, which is realign with new habits, right? Realign with new behaviors that are going to get you there, right? Planning, waking up early, staying on task, building the confidence. These are the new behaviors that are going to get you to where you want to go. And you have to start identifying with those new behaviors. The behavior always comes before the success. Okay? So if you want to be in amazing shape, what are the behaviors that someone that's in amazing shape has? Well, they meal prep, let's say, for example. They count calories. They go to the gym an hour a day. They are active. They swim, they walk walk their dogs, they go outside and play beach volleyball, whatever it is, they do. They're constantly consuming a lot of information about how to stay healthy. Okay? These are the behaviors that someone that is in shape has. So if you want to be in amazing shape, just start doing the behaviors that they're doing. Because the behavior comes before the actual reward. Okay? So if I want to be speaking in front of millions of people, what are the behaviors that Brendon Burchard has that I don't, right? And start implementing and realigning with those behaviors and creating a new reality, a new personality, which will create a new reality. So that's it. I think that's it for today's podcast. Use the 5-circle method. Begin to plan. As you begin to reach these goals, you're going to develop more confidence, which is going to allow you to create bigger goals. As you go down this process and you're doing, the monkey is going to come in, the self-doubt monkey, the fear monkey, the apathy monkey. Start paying attention to him and dismissing him, but pay attention to what he's saying to you. Understand where this began in your life. Set a pure intention of what you want to do. It's not kind of like, oh, I want to write a book one day. It's like, I am going to write a book. Right? It's not, oh, I'm going to speak to 1 million people. I'm going to speak to 1 million people one day. Okay? Huge difference in power there. As you move forward, you're going to start paying attention to the resistance. Ask where that resistance began so that you can truly be free of it. Once you're truly free of it, you can align yourself with new behaviors and new habits to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve in this world. I think that's it. Thanks for listening, and make sure, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because every single Wednesday I am coming out with all kinds of content. Going to be bringing on some amazing guests very shortly, and I got a lot of good stuff coming up, so I think you're going to want to be in tuned and listening to it. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.